Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I've brought them back. They're back again. The only way is XG, the crew, the group, the cult, whatever we are, we're back. Kuva, Kalf, how are we doing, gentlemen?
It's a good day. It's rather chilly. It's one of those warmer days today, so it's still jumper weather, so I'm very happy with that. But we're back. Essex is here. XG is here. Someone's gonna go out to Faces. Someone's gonna go here. Savva's gonna go out the Sugar Hut. Coos is gonna go to the Olive Tree. It's gonna be wonderful.
Coos sounds like he's going to a nice posh place, whereas I'm going to
the Olive Tree
the
was not
Sugar
posh.
Hut.
The Olive Tree was not posh. Big up the Olive Tree. It's not there anymore.
Oh, good. Kuva's going to a derelict site. Good,
Yeah,
good. Well, welcome back to. I don't know why we call this The Only Way is XG, and it's nowhere. It's not advertised anywhere. It's not in the thumbnail. It's not in the logo. Anyway, guys, we've got a little hour to talk about some football stuff, and we've got three very different topics today. We've got one about Paul Gascoigne. Remember Paul Gascoigne? Remember that guy? Yeah, remember that legend? Yeah. He was quite famous in the 90s. Paul Gascoigne snubbed by Spurs. That's as close as I can get to clickbait as the other YouTubers. Snubbed by Spurs. And we're also going to talk about Amanda Staveley. Is she joining Spurs? Obviously, not to play in the number 6 role or not on the right wing, but is she joining Spurs? What do we make of all this 12.5% buying into Tottenham Hotspur? We'll look into it in a light-hearted way, of course. And the last one is Pep Guardiola, not Spurs, but Pep Guardiola to manage England. I'm not saying that as a fact. I'm asking that as a question. It's doing the rounds. Pep's giving very, very cloak and dagger answers where he's not ruling anything in, he's not ruling it out. And I think a lot of diehard England fans will be wetting themselves at the fault. So, guys, should we start with Paul Gascoigne? Do you think that would be a good place to start? And we'll talk about the man, the genius, the enigma a little bit later. But this is why we're talking about Paul Gascoigne. Paul Gascoigne has said in the last 24 hours, 48 hours, he said, at Rangers, as in Glasgow Rangers, I'm welcomed in every way. Whereas at Tottenham, I asked for a couple of tickets and they said, that will be £400 each. I was like, wow, with all I did for that club. When they play the Spurs, I'll be a Rangers fan. I'm not going to say anything. Who would like to begin on that?
There's a lot of context. I'm happy. I'll probably get pelters for saying this, or I won't get pelters. But there's a lot of context with this, isn't it, Savva? Without the Tottenham Hotspur Foundation, Paul Gascoigne might not be alive. And that's just a fact. He might not be alive.
Right.
So the club has done an awful lot for Paul Gascoigne. Yes, I do agree. The club should be giving him some free tickets. If he wants to go to see a game, they should be giving him a tickets or putting him in in where, like, you go to like the club level seats at Tottenham and you see legends walking about and they're doing like great. You could give him an ambassadorial role and stuff like that. They should be giving him a bit of leeway for legends. And legend status, I'm not saying give every single player that's played for Tottenham a ticket to watch Tottenham, because that would be crazy. 890 players have played for Tottenham. There's a hell of a lot of players.
And that was just last season.
Yeah. But for Paul Gascoigne to come out and say this club has really done nothing for me, that's a bit... I don't know who has asked him to write that statement. I don't know why he's come out and made this statement. In particular, the Tottenham Hotspur Foundation and Paul Gascoigne and Gary Mabbott have done quite a lot for that man. All his medical bills at private hospitals paid for by the club. He's not paid. I don't understand. This is context. This is why we call this context.
No, sure. I didn't know this. So this is me hearing this.
The Tottenham Hotspur Foundation and Newcastle's Foundation, all the clubs he's played for have given him bit, but the majority of the money towards his treatments have been given to him by Tottenham Hotspur. And Gary Mabbott, as the absolute legend that he is, has been sort of been there with it, and that's still money. So yes, Gazza should be given tickets to go to games. There's no shadow of doubt. He's a legend of the football club. Some people might not agree with that, but he is, isn't he? He just is a legend of the football club. Of course. But the club has done quite a lot for Paul Gascoigne as a human being. So maybe this is not a battle you need to fight, but it's we can have this conversation. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, look, Kuva, I'm hearing that for the first time, so that's quite opening. And again, context does change the angle of a debate, right? Look, I'm going to ask you from this point of view, do you think this sounds worse than it is off the basis of what we've seen from the David Pleat saga a couple of months back, where he was talking about how the club kind of snubbed him and didn't do anything to support when he was trying to sell his book, etc.? Or do you think this is just a standalone issue, or can you wrap it all into one, adding in Ben's context? Kuva, what do you make of it?
Standard one of those, isn't it? The headline grabs you. You don't see the full interview, so you could be suspicious, rightly so, straight away at what was actually said at the time. But the first reaction for me, as it will be for a lot of people, is typical Levy.
Yeah,
It's the first thing that gets you. It can't help it, just because you've seen all these things over the course of time. But it's not an insubstantial amount of money. Is 400 quid. I mean, obviously Paul Gascoigne, he's pretty much frittered away most of his wealth, hasn't he? So it is significant. I think if you're going to go to all that trouble of as Ben said, the help with the rehabilitation and everything, why not throw in a couple of tickets as well? It seems kind of weird that it's an issue all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Because as far as I'm concerned, players like that, you should have just free pass to get in all the time.
Do you think there's more to this thing, Kuva? Like, in terms of, it's really random, isn't it? I'm going to spitball here. I'm guessing that somebody's asked him about his two ex-clubs playing each other in Europe, and I could be wrong here. And they're asking, who are you going to support? And I think it's probably kind of a very throwaway statement without thinking about the bigger picture. And then what it's done is it's riled all the Spurs community to go, oh, Daniel Levy, you're the worst person in the world. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, it's always going to be an element of that, isn't it? As he said, context is everything, as you like to say on the show.
Yeah.
So I would love to see that whole interview so you can actually see how that pans out. But you look at the final sentence when it comes to Spurs versus Rangers. Yeah, it must have been keyed towards that. Obviously.
That's the reason why I think he was asked that. And again, I'm purely speculating. I know that's how 99% of the media runs these days, but I'm purely speculating. But it feels strange, Ben, right? If you're saying, look, they've done this, they've done that, they've paid for medical bills, which I'm guessing are extortionate.
A lot of money. A lot of money. What would you rather have, Savva? Have someone save your life or be given a football match to Spurs versus Rangers in a pre-season friendly? Because
going
in a European game, I'd rather have my life, to be honest. I'd rather be someone save my life. I mean, that's with me. He doesn't have to have a £400 hospitality ticket. He can go and sit with the fans and spend whatever it is on a football ticket. He could spend, what is it? The cheapest seats are about £70 a ticket. He could have that ticket. Yeah. He could, and there's not like there isn't stewards or security. He could still go there, and he'd probably actually have a great time if he sat in the South Stand and had a great time. He'd probably be loved. Everyone would be dark, but it's the fact he has to have. It's a hospitality ticket. That's why it's costing so much. But it's context. It's context that he wouldn't be alive if it weren't for the people that have helped him. And Tottenham have done quite a lot for Paul Gascoigne. And I'm someone that hates Daniel Levy. I go to almost every protest. We've talked about protests. I've gone to almost all of them. This is not something I can go, because I know the consistency and the context of they've helped him out quite a lot. So yes, it's that whole overarching argument.
There's also the point of everything about this is just PR, isn't it?
Yeah.
From the very fact that your words used in the article are done that way to sell the article. So the fact that if Paul Gascoigne's turning up and you're spending 800 quid for a couple of tickets for him, what's the problem if you just say, Paul, do you mind just coming out like half time or something, do a little, impromptu legends bit?
Yeah.
Do that. Great publicity for the club, saying here's one of our ex-players. We're just giving him, laid it on for him, giving him free go here. And it's great to see him. Everybody's in a good mood. It's Gazza, What's the problem? 800 quid we're talking about to a club like Tottenham.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this all in, and this is the thing. Listen, I think it's brilliant that we've got that bit of context there from Ben. But let's wrap it all in.
It's just being fair, isn't it? It's being fair.
Of course it is. But the problem is Daniel Levy's almost. This is almost a kind of issue in his own making, even if there isn't a lot of merit to this one story. And what I mean by that is, you've got the David Pleat scenario a couple of months back. On top of Gazza putting what he put yesterday, I don't know if you gents have seen this. Ramon Vega, League Cup winning centre half for Tottenham, then came back and said Gazza, just to make you feel better, at Celtic, where he played and welcomed in every way. Whereas at Tottenham, I asked for a couple of tickets and had a similar response. May I was mistreated as I was only a Swiss international, but how can this happen to you as an English national treasure? Now, I believe they call this the pylon, right? Pylon, right? Gaz has said it. Ramon Vega, and people can say what they want about Ramon, one of the very few men to have won a trophy for Tottenham in the last 30 odd years, right? And that tackle, if anyone remembers that tackle in the cup final when Emil Heskey was bearing through on goal. Anyway, so Vega's said that. We've got the Pleat thing. Gaz has said this. In a way, Kuva, as much as we want to say, this one's not on Levy, is this the case of the boy who cried wolf? This happens time and time again to Daniel Levy, that people now aren't going to go, but you did pay the hospital bills. They're purely going to focus on, you've snubbed Paul Gascoigne.
Yeah, well, clearly players are annoyed by it, aren't they? So how much value do you have in your ex-playing staff? That's the real question.
Yeah.
Seems to be it's selective, isn't it? I mean, if I was really cynical, I might say the work done from a medical point of view with Paul Gascoigne and mental health as well. I could say perhaps that's a little bit of PR for the club as well. So that is a very cynical outlook, but I kind of feel that way about this ownership. When you look at how many things are being charged for that other clubs would be complimentary, that put on complimentary, the fact that you actually get that direct comparison between Rangers and Spurs from Gascoigne himself, that's kind of telling there. That suggests that clubs do things very differently. Otherwise, how much do you want to read into it? How big a deal is it? Hard to say.
It's a really difficult one because it's the David Pleat one. It incensed me. That one made me fuming because David Pleat hasn't taken anything from the club and has only given. He only asked for a stand at the shop so he can sell his book for charity. That would have cost no money for the football club. It literally would have costed no money, and they didn't do it. That incensed me because, again, it was going to a good cause, and we had the AOS challenge. What was it? 8 years ago. It's a long time ago now, and how much motor neurone disease took the world by storm. How we need to promote that this is a vicious illness. So that was sickening. So there was no context for it. There was literally nothing you can say in Levy's defence and the club's defence. This club doesn't treat ex-players well. Danny Blanchflower is one of them. He had to become a taxi driver after he retired. And this is the club's greatest ever ambassador for the football club. That all his words are still plastered around the inside of the stadium. The game is about glory. All that, and he had to become a taxi driver. Martin Shivers had to become an asbestos a surveyor after he left because the club weren't paying him money. West Ham did it with Bobby Moore. Bobby Moore was thrown to the wolves. And this is Bobby Moore. Is Bobby Moore? a legendary footballer, like one of the greatest players to ever play a football match. This is a problem with clubs. This is a massive problem with clubs from back there, and it's dripped into the modern era, and you just don't know how to do it, because how all of our ex jobs, they don't treat us with flying colours if we ever go back to our old job. It
does kind of link in with the ownership discussions over the years as well, because you go back 50 years or so, all the clubs are basically family-run businesses. So it was treated as a family, and we're kind of losing that. It's now become total business. It's all about the commercial aspect of everything.
For sure.
So those little sentimental or courtesy things don't matter as much. If it affects the bottom line, then there is a decision suddenly being made rather than just instantly going, yeah, no problem, we'll do it.
So Kuva, it's something that's more like, this is something that will piss the fans off more because it's the darling of White Hart Lane. It's Paul Gascoigne, and he's that cheeky guy. Yeah. He had some issues, but we love him anyway because he cried at the World Cup and he was a genius, and a troubled genius, I like to call it. But you're right. Is Daniel Levy doing this? I'm saying Levy, but I'm guessing the direction again. He runs the club. The snub to Paul Gascoigne here isn't going to change anything commercially for Tottenham. It's not going to make these fans who are outraged by it not go to Tottenham and watch the game, right? Yeah. I'm guessing anyone that's going to the West Ham game, right, isn't going, oh, you know what? In support of Paul Gascoigne, I'm giving away my tickets. I'm not going. And that's what we've become, right? Not just Spurs, but we're talking about Spurs for us. We are a corporate monster now, Kuva. Those sentiments, the romanticism. Yeah, there you go. That's the word I was looking for. The romanticism has gone. Gazza wasn't even part of Levy's tenure, right? So from his point of view, as a hard-nosed businessman that wants to make a buck, is he going, oh, but it's Gazza? I don't think he is. I don't think he is doing that. I think he's going, why do I care if Gazza's there? Yeah.
That's the emotional detachment from the club being shown, isn't it?
Of course.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, you look at the stadium for a start. We've talked about this before. When it's not a match day, so suppose the NFL comes is due, you wouldn't recognise the stadium at all as being a football ground.
No.
Yet for me, and I'm sure for you and Ben, I'm sure you'd agree as well, you'd like to see your ground dripping in memorabilia of our past everywhere. Statues up there.
I just want the old guy that used to be outside Turnstile 46 that used to pretend to do the searching thing. I just want that guy back. I miss him.
You're right.
Bring back the turnstiles.
Yeah. Do you know what? About a year ago, I went and filmed with Arsenal Fan TV at the Emirates, outside the Emirates. And the reason I bring that up is because when I got there about 20 minutes early. So I was sitting outside the stadium. It was absolutely hammering it down with rain anyway. I'm sitting outside the stadium. And what you noticed on the forecourt outside of the Emirates is plaques and photos and murals and statues of Thierry Henry, Liam Brady, Bob Wilson. I could go through it. There's just memorabilia everywhere of, hey, this is our history. This is who we are. Look at these greats. If I walk around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, I look at it and see Formula One advertising, American NFL advertising, concerts advertising. And don't get me wrong. Yes, we can say it's the best stadium in the world. We've got no way of knowing that, right? Unless we've been to all of them. But it's one of the best stadiums in the world. But not one part of it screams Tottenham Hotspur. Like not one of it screams.
Not written on it. It's not written on the stadium.
Right. So again, this whole thing, yes, we'll have the context in, but it doesn't surprise you with Ramon Vega and David Pleat and Paul Gascoigne. None of it surprises us, does it? That this is how we operate?
No, I think the even more alarming thought is when you carry that on into the future. What happens when the NFL becomes bigger than football? Suddenly, Tottenham Hotspur are as we currently are, but people seem to forget it too often. We are tenants. It's not really the club's ground, is it? It's
no.
So we could be in that situation where we're not so desirable to be there anymore, and it seems to be the way things are heading. The club's going to chase the money at the moment. With this ownership, the club will chase whatever brings in the most money.
For sure.
This is why top four is important, whereas pushing the extra doesn't matter because it's that cost to reward ratio.
Doesn't warrant plugging in another £300 million on top players.
Exactly.
Of course. I mean, the interesting thing, Ben, and before we move on to the next subject, the interesting thing about this is when you speak to a lot of people at Spurs, and that we've all been and we've all had the corporate hospitality, and you've got the Michael Dawsons, you've got the Ledley Kings. Yeah. If we go back to the older players that are there at the moment, you've got the Paul Allens, you've got the John Pratts. Sorry if there's any younger viewers that are thinking, who on earth am I talking about here? You've got the John Pratts. You know, you've got those types of people there. All the noises that come out of the club is that these people aren't paid great. And when you actually listen to them talk, you don't really there's no sense of excitement. It's almost like they've been programmed what to say. Does that make sense? So like when you see Michael Dawson goes on Gillette Soccer Saturday, right? By the way, there are other channels available to watch other than Sky Sport. But when Michael Dawson's on there, everything he says is very programmed about Spurs. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying he's not a legend of the club. I'm not saying he doesn't love the club, but it's almost like they're not allowed to be honest. They're not allowed to freestyle what they say. It all feels very programmed, as the whole thing at Tottenham now feels like it's so much a business, Ben, that we've lost that, as Kuva and I was saying, it's that romanticism. It's that romantic notion that this is our club. And on Saturday, you know, we all go off into dream world for a couple of hours while we watch our club and dream of winning things. That feels gone at Spurs.
Yeah, or it's no longer a club, is it? It is just like in any old business, like a corner shop or a fish. It is just a business. Whereas a club, you're like, let's say you're a member of the Ned in Bank. You become a member of that club. They shower you. You're allowed to use the hotel. You're allowed to use this. You're allowed to use that. You're made welcome. You're given ours doesn't feel like a club anymore. It feels like you've paid for the pleasure to be there rather than you have become a member, which is, again, it goes back to the client reference number. You are a client. You're not a supporter. You're not a member. When you're going to a club, because that's what it says in that. It says football club. It should feel like a club. You see your mates there. You get a bit of hospitality. You get a bit of this. You get a bit of that. There's little, of course, memberships, because it's a much bigger thing than a club. But then I gave the Ned as an example because that's a multi-million pound business. And it's a multi-million pound business, and there's tiers of membership. Being a season ticket holder, it should be like a tier of membership. You get this, you get that, you get your seat, you get a bit of this, you get a bit of that. Hospitality, you pay a bit more. We just seem like, it's a ticket. It's no longer a sport. It's now a sports enterprise rather than a sports club. Yeah. And that is the problem with football these days. It's moving further away from what these clubs eventually were. Originally, it was a cricket club. You go to a cricket club, you play a bit of cricket, you get smashed at the bar. That's what you did at cricket clubs or rugby clubs. Or go to a small club like the Woodford Wells club that's just up the road from me. It's what you do. It's a club. It's another conversation. Do they start removing the word club from the names of football teams? Because it's no longer a club anymore. It's now an enterprise.
Tottenham Hotspur Enterprise.
Tottenham Hotspur Football Enterprise. FE instead of FC. It's
not football. Not football. Tottenham Hotspur Sport
Enterprise. Entertainment. It's the WWE. Instead of the World Wrestling Federation, it's the World Wrestling Entertainment. Except there's no entertainment with Spurs.
And it won't be specifically for Tottenham because we'll be going on tour everywhere. So you'll end up with just the Hotspur franchise.
Yeah, that's what it will be. Hotspur Entertainment Corporation.
Yeah, look, it is. I mean, let's use this to segue Kuva into the next bit of the show. We'll stay on Spurs. We'll go to Pep at the end. Amanda Stavely, when she came in and had the stake in Newcastle United, and they did the documentary. I don't know if you've seen that, but that was a really good football program about how Newcastle's owners came in and what they did with Eddie Howe and how they built the brand of the club. Little did we know that a couple of years later, we'd be talking about Amanda Stavely like we would signing a player. Like this feels like the kind of ownership version of will we buy Eze, won't we buy Eze? Do you know what I mean? She's been seen at the ground. I believe the last month she's been at a lot of events at the ground with Levy, without Levy. And there's talks, Kuva, that her, not alone, but her and a consortium are going to buy, I believe, sorry if anyone's got the exact number, but I believe it's 12.5% of Tottenham Hotspur. Lots of people going, oh my God, this is amazing. Everything's changing. We're going to start buying world-class players. What do you make of this? Is this a good move for Spurs if it comes off? Does 12.5% ownership actually mean anything in the grand scheme of things? And what does this mean for Ben's beloved leader, Daniel Levy, as he was sticking up for him just now?
Yeah.
I have no idea. That's what it basically comes down to. We'll have to
moving on, Ben.
Look, right. If you're going to go buying at 12.5%, you've got to assume there's going to be conversations going on about what sort of things they want to have out of the club.
Yeah.
There's got to be at some kind of level. There's a bit of a boardroom shake-up, but it's not a takeover, is it? So it's not a complete things are being done my way anymore. So it makes it difficult to really assess what's going to happen there. Yeah. Is there going to be those little promises about management takeovers, or when it turns in terms of the actual football manager, or is it going to be little assertions made about what we're going to be doing off the field, how we're going to address things, the transfer policies and everything? How much really input goes into it? I don't know. Does anybody know? So it's an interesting one. I think I'll be a lot more sort of taking interest if it was, say, 40% or something, right? Because then it suddenly becomes very sizable.
If it got you nearer that kind of majority ownership in a few years, rather than 12%.
Exactly. Kind of like what Enoch did, really, isn't it?
Yeah, they bought him in 1994, didn't they?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where they're deliberately trying to give Spurs fans hope, isn't it? Now, I don't know if anyone remembers this, but there was a businessman that wanted to buy Tottenham in 2004, and he subsequently bought another football club, which then went on to become very, very successful. His name was Roman Abramovich.
Yeah.
When he wanted to buy Tottenham, what was one of the little quick pro quos that ended the deal? Daniel Levy had to remain the chairman of the football club, which is why it collapsed, because they didn't. That's the reason. Levy wanted him to buy the club, but he wanted to remain as the chairman because he saw what he was doing. He had the business plan in place and all blah blah blah.
Yeah.
This reminds me a lot, and I'm not putting it away. A lot of people say, like, I'm going to put a lot of people that are coming into the comments and say that Ange Postecoglou is going to outsmart Levy. Ange Postecoglou is going to change Levy. He's going to do this. He's going to outsmart him. Just wait and see. They're saying the same thing. Amanda Staveley is going to make Levy change.
Right.
No, she is not. No, she is not. The reason she is buying into the football club is because they want to buy part of the money printer. That is it. They want to make money. Why would you buy into a successful business which is making £6 million per football match, gross £6 million a football match, and then get rid of the guy that is literally the architect of why it's printing that much money? People, so it's baffling to me. It's baffling. Business people are not going to get rid of good business people.
But Ben, football fans don't think about that. Football fans don't think about that. And this is why I've always said, and again, this is a touchy subject with people, this is what I've always said about the whole point of protesting. And obviously, look, I've got friends in this community that, that are very much at the top of that in terms of people like Brian Daigle, people like Stel. They know my feelings on it because of this money printing machine, because of what Daniel Levy's been in the business to do. I've never thought that protesting is actually going to make Daniel Levy, who doesn't give a flying monkeys about that, I've never thought it's going to make him go, right, let's have an emergency meeting, everyone. Right. Oh, God, they don't like me. Should we sell? They don't. He don't care.
I'm not going to make this a debate, but it's protest does work. I'm pushing back. Protest does work, but this isn't about protest. This is about people thinking that Amanda Staveley is going to buy in to get rid of the person that's going to make her, because that's what she is. She is a front for an investment corporation. That is what she is. She is the mouthpiece of a conglomerate of people that wish to buy part of a business. Yeah. Do you really think those people that are giving her money to buy a sizable chunk, you know what? Let's get rid of the guy that's going to make us back money on our investment. It's people don't understand business. Yeah. This is my problem with football, and this is again, it's context and consistency. It's now I don't want this football club to be an investment corporation, but that is what it is. We are owned by the English National Investment Corporation. That's what ENIC stands for. That is what it stands for.
Sorry, are you saying that Amanda Staveley and her mates aren't just going, oh, we've got loads of money, let's just chuck it into Spurs and give it to Levy to buy?
Because they tried to do that with Newcastle, Savva, and the Premier League pushed back and said, no, we're not doing that anymore. We've had it with Chelsea and we've had it with Manchester City. No one wants that. They have literally put rules to stop them bankrolling the football club. The reason they wish to buy Tottenham is because it's already making that money, and they can just put a bit on the top, build the cinemas, build the hotels, build up the area around the stadium, that gentrification of the area, which I'm not against it. And Shoreditch was the worst part of the world in the 1970s. When my dad got his first job in Shoreditch, that was like 10 people a day died there or something crazy. It was a dump. They've made Shoreditch now the hub and the cultural centre of London. A bit of gentrification isn't bad if it makes the food better, if it makes travel better, and if it makes the lives for the people in that area better. That is what they're buying into. They're not buying a football club to make money because, again, like we said earlier, why would you spend 300 million quid to earn an FA Cup?
Yeah.
They are an investment corporation. They are investing into a business to make money. And 12.5%. Do you think Amanda Staveley with 12.5% of backing is going to be able to say, oh, we should buy world-class players? Levy's going to say, get back in your corner, mate.
Right.
Get back in the corner.
This is the crux of it, Ben. This is the crux of it for me. I mean, when we talk about, listen, I've stayed away from this topic for the last couple of weeks. I know a lot of people have gone really deep into it.
Yeah.
But for me, I've always had that kind of same mindset of the first moment someone messaged me and said, oh, Amanda Staveley's buying Spurs. My first response back to that person was, what percentage, right? Because if the percentage isn't in the 50s, right? If the percentage isn't in the 50s where she or her backers, whoever, have got majority say, for me, it's pointless. For me, this is another corporate deal within the club that allows rich people to get even richer. As a football fan, Kuva, realistically, if it's not a complete buyout, this doesn't really change anything for us as the everyday fan, does it? It doesn't. No.
Exactly. That's the thought.
Talk about,
you see 12.5%. Who cares? It's, doesn't make any difference. It's like repainting part of the club. It doesn't change anything. Yeah. Well, unless you do it red, obviously.
Yeah. That's the thing, Savva. Daniel Levy himself owns 30% of 80% of the ownership because ENIC own 80% of the. I think it's something like, I don't know the exact. It's in the high 80s of what ENIC own of the football club. Then there's minority shareholders. People still own shares of the club, back to when it was on the stock exchange.
Yeah.
12% versus if she just went up against Daniel Levy, who owns 30%, she's going to lose because he has more controlling stake in the business. That's how business works. You don't if someone buys 5% of my coffee shop and starts telling me how I start making coffee, go, here's a coffee. There's your 5%. Now sit in that corner, and enjoy your
You're not going to buy.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, isn't there a magic percentage where if you buy that amount, you're obliged to make an offer for the rest of the shares? I think I remember reading something along those lines. It was an interesting one, but it's obviously 12.5%, isn't it?
There's going to be deals in the contract, and with this 12%, we don't know the contract because we don't know who the lawyers are. We don't know who's drawing up the buyout, not the buyout.
This 12% allows us in 2 years' time from today to buy another 12%. Should we reach this figure? That type. I'm not saying that's in that contract, but you're right. You wouldn't go to Facebook, right, and buy 12% of Facebook from Mark Zuckerberg, and then rock up to wherever his offices are these days. I don't know if they're in Silicon Valley or wherever they are, and say, right, Mark, we're changing the logo, we're changing the branding, we're changing. Whoa, hang on. Hang on, I'm Mark Zuckerberg. I built this. Do you know what I mean? So for me, guys, I'm kind of like, people might see it as baby steps. It's baby steps to getting out Levy, and we might have 12% this year and another 5%. And look, for me, all I know is I can't see anything changing by anybody buying that, not for them, but that insignificant stake in the football club. I just can't. And the only thing I can liken it to, but I'm not a finance expert, you guys might shoot me down, is kind of, if you look at Man United, so Jim Ratcliffe, my understanding, has bought 20 to 25% of Manchester United, right, for, I think, what was it, 1.1 billion or something, I don't know, something like that. Right. And they've come to an agreement that I believe, again, shoot me down, I believe that he will take over the running of the football club from a sports perspective. Yeah. But let's be fair. The Glazers, to my knowledge, still own 75% of the business, right?
Ish, so along those lines, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure there's other investors.
Has already agreements, because I think the way they structured the deal, he bought 25% up front, and then he's going to buy an extra 10%. I think eventually Ratcliffe will be the majority owner, upwards of 50%. But they've structured the deal because, again, money for someone like Jim Ratcliffe doesn't grow on trees. He has physically built that well. It's not like he inherited probably quite a bit of money, but he's created a lot of that money. He's buying the football club. So he's 25%, then 30%, this percent, and then he's the majority owner. I think that's the way it's going. But he's at least bought a sizable 25 to 30% of that. That's a big chunk of a company. Yeah. When you own 30% of something, then you do get a bit of power, because you can buy the people around you on the board table, because you can say, okay, do you want to join? You've got 5%, I've got 25%, you've got 5%. We can put that together and make 35%, and then we can have a bit of leeway, because that's how boardrooms work. It's seeing people around the table, and you've got to say this many people against you, and then we have a boardroom meeting, we have a vote, bang, democracy. When you only have 12%, you're not going to have any leeway over anything. Will they be allowed in the board meetings, Kuva, with their 12%? Can you imagine? Amanda Staveley comes to the door. They'll have one share out of 15.
You'd imagine so. If you took it down to sort of a basic sort of roundabout, that's an eighth of the ownership sort of thing. So you'd imagine that's going to be a seat, though, isn't it? You're going to have some sort of say, but it's limited.
Do you know what I think it does do, guys? And I don't know, we've not had this conversation. It'd be a really random conversation for us to have ever had. I quite like Amanda Staveley from a public persona point of view. Like, whenever I see her interviewed, when I watch the Newcastle documentary, she seems like she's very good with people. And I don't just mean the other rich people. She seems very good with the players. She seemed very good with their sponsors. She seemed very good with the marketing. She was very hands-on. I think that what this could be, and I'm purely hoping, guys, is that we actually now start to, I know it hasn't happened, but if she does come in, that we start to see a little bit more of a
human
of a human element from the ownership to the fans, because we get Ethel from Levy. You know, we might get the odd Oxford University chat. We get these staged fan forums, but maybe someone like an Amanda Stavely, who we hear from once a month, and you think, okay, I get it. I resonate with that person. Am I clutching at straws, or do you see what I'm saying? She could be a bit more of a softer figure in the public eye.
Well, there we go, everyone. Savva's got the hots for Staveley.
Yeah.
If I pan my camera that way, there's a big poster of Amanda Stavely.
It's certainly affected your
naked on a rug in front of a fire.
I agree. It would be nice to have a little bit of actual human element to our ownership, because, like I said, when it's Levy, it's planned out, it's precise, it's
surgical.
It's cold.
It's surgical.
Absolutely.
Cold, surgical, regimented.
But somebody with a bit of life to them, I'm all for it. I want to feel connected to the club again, because at the moment I really don't. I haven't spent anything on this club in donkey's years now, because I just don't believe in it. It's going to help, isn't it? It's going to help your image. You've got to connect with people in some sort of way. You can't just be this faceless corporate entity. At the end of the day, there's a lot of people going to home games. That is a big crowd we have. Yeah. So at that level alone, you've got to show something, haven't you? Can't just be going everything plastic, everything, insert credit card, then get out. But it's got to be a club still. We've always fight against this, and it always seems like it's slipping away. But perhaps this will take it in the other direction a little bit. Yeah, I think you're right.
You're right. My love for the club will always be there, but it's a very different love now. It's a very. Do you know what this feels like? It's like, when you've had people in your personal life, in your past, who you don't speak to anymore, but you'll always love them in a way that they had such a big period of your life, right? But you no longer speak to them, but they were integral for whatever it was, whether it's an ex, whether it's a friend that you don't, whatever. I feel like that at times with Spurs. I feel like, I love this club so much, but do I feel attached to them? Like when my wife comes home at night, I look forward to seeing my wife walk through the front door, right? Yeah. There's that love. There's that love of, that's the love of my life, versus, oh God, this again. Do you know what I mean?
I would take it one step further. I wouldn't say it's like people you used to know. I would liken it to things you used to eat as a kid. So, for example, I grew up in Chigwell, but I spent a lot of time in I went to school in Barkingside. So I have a massive love of Rossi's ice cream in Barkingside. That's what it's Heinz. Tottenham Hotspur is Heinz tomato soup. I used to love Heinz tomato soup when I was a kid. That's what I would. It's a product.
Yeah,
I used to love McDonald's. I used to love the Cadbury's donuts at McDonald's. They don't do them anymore.
So now when you see that, you get that warm, fuzzy feeling, but it's not I must have it. This needs to be in my life every day. Look, the last thing I'd say, guys, is, and by the way,
Detto. Tottenham Hotspur's Detto.
Yeah, I like you need Detto. It. You've got to have it in your life, but you can put it away for a bit. Look, the last thing I'll say before we move on to the last subject is, what this does do, right, is these links with someone like Amanda Stavely, unfortunately, in the world we live in, it starts to breed really ridiculous stories that the media run with, that fans run with. And for example, I've literally just Googled the words Amanda Stavely, and the words, that's really rude, the name Amanda Stavely. And the very first thing that comes up from an article written in the last 24 hours, right? I'm not going to say the publication, is Staveley to target brilliant and replacement in surprise Tottenham move. Now, this is what happens, right? We've just talked about, can Amanda Staveley come in and start throwing her weight around, and I want to buy this player. And do these people truly believe that Amanda Stavely can come in and her caveat to Daniel Levy is, right, we're going to buy 12%, but you see that Australian manager you've got? No. Yeah. You see Eddie Howe? We're bringing him out. Like, do you know what I mean? It snowballs from.
It's possible, isn't it? But that would suggest that's somebody that's been sitting down, taking part in the bloody meeting to know that level of content.
Yeah,
I mean, it's so unlikely, isn't it? I mean, we are talking. Well, that kind of thing happens when we're talking about complete takeover. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you come and do what you want. Then you got the plan in place. 12.5% is not that move, is it?
It's what they did to Steve Bruce, right? They came in. We're going to give him a few games. We want to see what he's all about. We all knew he was getting the sack, didn't we? And then Howe came in. But Kuva, isn't it crazy though? How one link. Look, my overarching thought on this is I think that fans don't quite understand that buying 12% in a football club doesn't allow you that complete autonomy to make decisions on transfer policy, the way the club is run, which manager's going to come in. I don't think they quite get that. Whilst 12%, I believe, is about, Ben might correct me, I think it's about £700 million. I think it's somewhere in that region.
A lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, for a Tottenham that's probably worth 4.5–5 billion, it's a drop in the ocean.
And it's that's what probably the private eye thinks. But Levy probably rates the club at 8 billion because the amount of money it's pulling in. So he would say, I'm not giving this up. It's going to make me 8 billion if I keep it, and I just keep it ticking over. Minimal investment here and there.
But this is what I never understood, Ben. This is what I never understood. When I get it a lot, right? A lot of people come into my shows because I'm quite vocal. If you guys didn't know, they come into my shows and go, "Oh, if you really don't like Levy, do something about it." Ben, your statement there is exactly why we as fans will never be able to do anything about Daniel Levy. The guy has built the club to such this isn't a big business. This is a gargantuan. This is a juggernaut, right? This is a Goliath. This is a money printing operation, and people think that a few football fans that are upset are going to get.
It's got for protests to work. It's got to be Arsenal level protests. It's got to be tens of thousands. It's got to be Man United levels of protest. The problem is Tottenham fans, apart from when we got Sugar out, who was a lot more humble. You can see Alan Sugar. You can see him about. You can see him about. You can actually have a chat with him.
Yeah.
Tottenham fans will never protest because Tottenham fans are like my family at a Friday night dinner. No one will agree with anything. At the moment, anything's a bit tetchy. Someone throws a chair. This one, it's like my family at a Friday night dinner because we won't agree on anything. Protests do work, Savva. I'm 100% agree. But context, you've got to have loads of people, and the maximum people we got was about 350, 400 people. And that was not at once. That was throughout the day. Protests do work. They absolutely work.
Sure, but to a level. Like when Newcastle did it, it was getting out a guy that owned a football. Newcastle was a football club worth £300 million, I believe they sold it for, something in that region. I'm not saying that's easy to do, but that's easier to do than asking somebody to sell a £5–6 billion enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as that new ground was made, finally constructed, Levy is not somebody you can just force out. Then
agreed.
You look at the comparison between
changes. You can force him to make changes, but you can't physically force him out of the club unless you do it through official channels. Which is what I've been saying we should do. I say it. The Spurs YouTube community should all sign up to the Spurs Supporters Trust, which is free. It doesn't cost anything. We should all form a political party within the Spurs Supporters Trust because we did this on the Tottenham on Tour. We have the chairman of the Spurs Supporter Club, Martin, and he's a lovely geezer, absolutely top geezer, and he wants the best for the football club in any way, shape or form. But the reason they don't talk about stuff like football is because the majority of the members of the Spurs Supporters Trust don't want to talk about football. So if we got a load of people together to form a Tottenham Hotspur Football Club talk about only football within the trust, we could actually get the trust who do have a seat on the board. So we would have just as many seats on the board as Amanda Staveley is about to have.
But wouldn't that be to suggest, though, that the club and the board's primary objective is football? I think to Kuva's point, and he might tell me this wasn't his point, but I think it wraps into it, Kuva. I think since that stadium was built, the moment that was all done and dusted and in stone and started being built, we stopped being about owners that care about the football.
You could say that as well.
Right?
It's a conversation. It's a conversation. I totally advocate people joining the Supporters Trust anyway, because they do some fantastic work for the disabled, for people going to games, the ticketing, the sorting people out, security for away. The Supporters Trust do an amazing. They just don't do what we want as fans, which is to help create a winning football club, and that's going to be a problem. And so, if you want to become a member of the Supporters Trust, I became a member of the Supporters Trust in 2 minutes. It literally takes 2 seconds, and it's free to do it. Of course, if you get the paid membership, you can then get yourself elected. But it's one of those things that being part of the Supporters Trust is a really good thing, and you can actually do little bits. But we got to force the club to make change, and you can only really do that through official channels at this moment.
The real challenge with that, though, is how many people is it going to take that are protesting to overcome this incredibly powerful PR machine?
It takes a lot of people.
We know what the club's like.
It takes a lot of people. We're going to need 10,000, 15,000 people.
I can't see it happening, can you?
No. I mean, it's never going to happen. And guys, listen, for the last 20 minutes, I want to go on to the next subject. I'm going to start with you, Kuva. Now, this is quite interesting. It's one of those ones where I wish I was live for this, and I'll tell you why. I've put in the fun in the title, Pep to manage England, ? As we're sitting here talking, I don't know if anyone has got Sky Sports News on in the background.
I do. Right. I was going to message you.
As we're talking, I've got Sky Sports in the background. Breaking news, the FA are in talks with Thomas Tuchel over the England job. So shamelessly, I've just edited the title while we're recording this to Pep or Tuchel to manage England. Shamelessly. Yeah. Look, because it kind of makes it redundant. If we're going to sit here and go, oh, let's have a full-blown conversation about the rumours of Pep Guardiola when the FA are in talks with Thomas Tuchel, for me, that signals that they're going to get that done. I can't imagine that they won't pay well enough. Kuva, Thomas Tuchel to manage England, the Pep rumours around managing England, have England learnt from having mediocre Gareth Southgate's Lee Carsley's? And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I mean in terms of, have they learnt from having managers that have never achieved anything versus now managers that have achieved major league titles, Champions Leagues? Is that the route you think they're going down? And what do you make of those two candidates?
First of all, we've got to look at the type of people, the type of characters they've always employed. There's no scandal about them, is there? The moment there's a hint of anything, Hoddle's out, Venables is out. You know, it's you know,
Redknapp's out, Allardyce.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do Tuchel and Guardiola both fit that role? Yeah, of course they do. I can't think of anything that's really come up about either.
No, not
so,
really.
There is that point of it. Do England want to finally win something? And they're thinking, better go big with people that have won, like, you know, Champions League and league after league title, and you know, are well respected in this country about what they've done here. Yeah, they both fit it. I mean, Pep's going to be the holy grail, isn't he? But
of course, yeah.
But for me, I don't see Pep wanting to do international management.
He has been quoted to say he wants to do the Brazil job, but the problem is the Brazil job is a point. It's now the Brazil job is now in the same position as the England job. It's a poison chalice now. It is now.
I think the difference would be there. Perhaps you'd say the Brazilian culture of the way they play football is more suited to what Pep wants to do than it would be for, say, the England team. You know, they got that. That's based on flair and individual brilliance, and then putting it all together.
That's kind of what Pep Guardiola team is, though, Kuva. Of course, Pep Guardiola has had flair players, like he's got Phil Foden now and Kevin De Bruyne, But if you look at Pep Guardiola teams, they are the best teams. They're not. He actually, like players like Thierry Henry did an interview on Sky, and he was playing on the left wing, and Pep told him to stay on the left wing. And Thierry Henry just came out and said, "I'm Thierry Henry, I do what I want." And he grabbed the ball and he did an amazing run and he scored a goal. Pep hooked him off at half time. Said, "No, I'm the boss. You listen to me." So maybe Pep Guardiola, he does build the best units of teams. His units are the best.
Can you imagine though, guys? I've just got this. Look, Pep is a manager, right? That when he goes to a club, he inserts and he adopts a philosophy of ultimate domination, right? His philosophy, if anyone watches, and this isn't me saying it, if anyone watches any of the documentaries on him, studies Pep, his philosophies are on, if we've got the ball, the other team can't do anything with it. And if we lose the ball, win it back in the next 3 seconds. Right? That's his philosophy. Now, I'm picturing a cold, rainy night in Wembley, right? England are drawing 0-0 with, I don't know, Macedonia. The team have got the ball. We've had 450 passes without having a shot on goal. Fans are screaming, "Get it long, kick him, get it long, get stuck in." And Pep's going, "Just players, don't listen to them. I can't imagine that enough English fans would have the patience for what Pep Guardiola actually does in a game of football versus what they want to see." Does that make sense?
I think there's a little bit more to it you could add to that as well. What about the players that go to Manchester City at the moment? You hear Pep saying about they're going to need a year before they really get how to play.
Yeah.
You can't do that at international level, can you? He's not going to have that time with the players. I just don't see how it translates to international management. Not unless he has taken over a team that already those players play that kind of football. That's what I'm saying. It maybe works at Brazil. It maybe works at Spain. Yeah. It just doesn't fit here, I don't think. So you can have a brilliant manager that won't have the time with the players to actually implement what he wants.
So you don't think he rocks up on day one and says, "Right, England, my back four, John Stones and Rico Lewis are definitely in it. Phil Foden, Jack Grealish. What young English players have I got in my squad? They're all going to..." But you're right. Can you adopt that philosophy to an international team? Well, you can, because Spain did it. That Spain team that won 3 tournaments in a row.
They all played Pep's football.
They all played it for their club. 7 of the 11, I think it was 6 or 7 of the 11. From
half the team was Real Madrid and the other half was Barcelona.
Right. And you had top players everywhere. If he went into England, don't get me wrong, from game one, you're going to see a difference. You're going to see the difference. But like you say, Kuva, from game one, are you going to see the results that you want? Are you going to see it? I think 9 times out of 10 you will, because you are playing Finland, Macedonia, Ireland.
But basically, you'll be seeing the same effect Ange just had at Spurs.
Well, you will, but I think the difference is that why I think Pep would work is Pep would be coming into some top footballers that play his style. Foden and Grealish play for him, right?
Cole Palmer's another one.
Bukayo Saka, Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane. The difference for me is I think he can go in immediately and go, right, have we got all the players to play my formula of football? All we're missing is a Rodri type. But I reckon he'd turn Rice into that Rodri type. So for me, I think it would work. But Kuva, you're right. How quick would it work? But I don't think Pep will take any shit off the FA. No. You watch Pep. Pep doesn't have time for it. You watch him. His interviews are almost like, "Oh, stop, you silly, like stop." You know, I'm Pep Guardiola. So, do we see that happening in light of the news, Kuva? In light of the news that the FA are in talks with Tuchel, was Pep a pipe dream? Was this the Holy Grail? Was this a lovely to have? But in reality, it's never happening.
Well, you've got to keep those sort of managers on the list, haven't you? Yeah. I'm sure they must have approached him in some sort of way of just checking out possibility of availability.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Who wouldn't want Pep as their manager? That's what it comes down to. So I'd expect him to be linked with almost every top job around the world. I think we've always been at that point where we're probably looking for somebody a little bit lower down the runs, aren't we? That's why we end up with a Southgate or somebody like that. You know, even R.I.P. Ericsson when he Sven-Goran Eriksson when he came over. You thought, is this really the top manager we need to bring us forward, or is he just a good manager that's doing a solid job?
Bridging that gap.
It's kind of that territory, isn't it?
Do you know what I think would be perfect, Kuva? I genuinely do, and I think this would shithouse and annoy so many people. I genuinely think that Jose Mourinho is your perfect international manager. A guy with all the wealth of experience, a guy that, let's be brutally honest, I'm not saying he is what he was, but this guy walks into a changing room, there's not a player that doesn't listen. Do you know what I mean? Pep walks into a changing room. Ancelotti walks into it. It's not the start of a bad joke. You know, Pep, Ancelotti and Jose walk into a changing room. They straight away, it doesn't matter whether you're Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, Lionel Messi, you go, I'm listening. I don't think you get that with
top players. Listen to top. That's why Jose Mourinho failed at Tottenham, because he didn't have those top players. Because they didn't. The two players that resonated with Jose Mourinho, and Antonio Conte is another world class manager. The two players that resonated with them were Kane and Son, because they were a cut above the rest. That the players like the Eric Dyers, the Sanchez's, the Skip, the Wing, like in the All or Nothing documentary, when Jose, he's going to be a lot more tactical, isn't he? I don't like that.
Jose pulled Dele Alli to the side, didn't he?
Yeah,
and he was like, "Look, you've got it all.
Yeah,
but there's a difference between being Dele Alli
and there,
Dele Alli, and." But
top players think, I want to learn. This guy's going to make me. That's what, like Harry Kane, when he was speaking with Jose Mourinho, he was like, I want to be one of the best in the world. And Mourinho was just like, thank God someone speaks proper English here.
Yeah.
But we've had that, Savva. We've had that as a manager. We had Fabio Capello. And people slaughter Fabio Capello. But the man won a league title with Roma, for God's sake. That man was a top manager. And people say, he took away the ketchup. He's evil. He doesn't understand. No, Fabio Capello wanted to win. And if that means...
That's a lot to answer for, doesn't it?
Fabio Capello, that's why Conte got rid of ketchup immediately. It's Fabio Capello said, we want players to be the right weight. They've got to be fit. They've not got to have sugar flowing through their veins. They need to be at the peak level of physicality to win a tournament.
Yeah.
And he's vilified for it because he had players... that we had top players, but we had egos. I think a top manager walks into this team and there are less ego. There are still a few egos, like Jude Bellingham's got an ego because he deserves that. Because no other footballer in that England team in the 93rd minute, we need to go, I got this. Overhead kick, back of the net, wins a game of football.
But these managers will bring... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think with Mourinho as well, there's... I always have this feeling of there's a simplicity about what he wants from the team. It's like he wants, if you're a defender, be a good defender. You do that 100% of the time for me. You be the pinnacle of what a defense should be. We know this kind of system with the one attacking fullback while the other one will hang back. You can pick out little things, characteristics of his teams. But all the players seem to buy into straight away, the top players. This is what's required. I can see what the end product's going to be if I play well for this manager.
Yeah.
So he does kind of fit that international role, doesn't he?
It's not a win now. Win at all costs. International management is just win, because you're only as good as the game you're playing. If you don't win a game, you're out of the tournament. You need a job.
And he's prepared. He's quite prepared. Yeah. And he's quite prepared to stink the place out for a 1-0 win as well.
Yeah.
It works. That's tournament football.
We'll bring the show to an end in the next 5 minutes by ending it with the news, like Thomas Tuchel. Like we've talked there about Jose Mourinho, about Pep, Eriksson and Southgate. Thomas Tuchel is a very interesting, polarizing character. And I remember when Spurs were looking for a manager, I don't know if anyone remembers, it was like, Thomas Tuchel. No, I don't want Thomas Tuchel. His football's horrible. We don't want him. But on the opposite side of things, this is a man that's won a lot of trophies. This man's won Bundesliga. This man's won Champions Leagues. He's won the French League, the German Cup, the French Cup. He outwitted Pep Guardiola in the Champions League final.
Yeah.
He is a winner. This is a winner, Kuva. Does he, for you, have the same gravitas? When he walks in that changing room day one, you've got Harry Kane as captain, Jude Bellingham's at Real Madrid, Foden and all them boys are playing for Pep. Do they look at Tuchel and go, yeah, we're serious. We're going to go one further than these finals. This is the guy.
Yeah, why not? Why not? When you're talking about international level, yeah, it is all about the results, as said. For me, if he came into Spurs, I'd be mortified. I don't like watching that kind of football.
Skeletor.
Yeah,
he is. Thing was, for Thomas Tuchel and Spurs, though, even though it's completely, at least Thomas Tuchel grew up supporting Spurs, so he actually understands what the club's about.
That is a big thing, isn't it? You know, the heart is there for the job. Then he desperately wants the team to win if it's the club he supports.
Yeah.
There is that side to it, but at the end of the day, it's choose your poison. You've got there's styles of play, there's styles of managers, but the one thing at the end of the day, if you want to win things, you pick a manager that wins things, and he does. So he ticks that box. That's a fundamental for anybody's argument, surely. Yeah. Even myself, where I'll reject football that it doesn't please me to look at. It's not swift passing and attacking football. I've got to have that, really.
Yeah.
But when it's somebody like Mourinho or the Tuchel coming in, if it was for Spurs, I'll just say, all right, I'm not going to be happy about the football, but just back them and let them win something, because it's a lot easier to have a moan about the style of football when you've got a couple of trophies to hold up, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Look, he's
same
not
goes for international level, isn't it? England have to win something.
Yeah. He's not everyone's cup of tea. I get that, right? For me, listen, what I can't sit here and bemoan Gareth Southgate for years because I don't think he's that caliber and I don't think he's that level, and then say, oh, Tuchel's rubbish. Listen, for me, the manager that comes in, the same as Southgate, has zero excuses. There is a wealth of talent there. There is now, for me, I think too many of these managers have tried to keep everyone happy. Oh, we've got a shoehorn in. Palmer's got to play, and Foden's got to play, and Saka's got to play, and Bellingham, and Rice, and Kane. And for me, I want a manager that comes in and goes, I don't care who you are for your club team. I'm picking what's best for my team. Yeah, I want a manager that understands that. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say he's my favourite manager in the world, but for me, that's a proper appointment rather than when we're talking about people like Potter, Lee Carsley, even Gareth Southgate. So for me, I can't really complain about it, right? That's just my feelings on it.
Yeah, it's just that point. He will be not a yes man. All the times Thomas Tuchel has ever left a football club, it's always been because he's fallen out of the board. I mean, this can either be absolutely brilliant or it can be an utter disaster. It's going to be one of the two of those, and it's going to be exciting. The football won't, but it might be exciting boardroom level wise.
But can the football get any worse?
That's how bad it is, really, isn't it? You have to get excited about the boardroom because of football.
Yeah, a bit of chair throwing, a bit of violence. It's great.
But could the football? I thought the football was really, really poor under Southgate.
It'll be better football because it will be structured. It might still draw the pants off you, but there'll be a structure. You can understand the idea behind it.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. It might not be free-flowing Pep Guardiola type football or what the Spanish are doing, but I get the feeling that we'll actually have left-backs who are left-backs. I get the feeling we'll actually have wingers who are playing on the right wing, and we'll actually, do you know what I mean? So for me, guys, out of 10, how good an appointment for England do we see that being if it comes off?
6 out of 10.
A 6? Only a 6?
Yeah. I want Pep Guardiola. When you die, I want Pep Guardiola. That's my guy. It is what it is.
from my own personal point of view, 0 out of 10. I couldn't care less. I just don't care about England nowadays. Not since Hoddle was sacked, I haven't. But in footballing terms, you got to look at what are England there for. It's to be in major tournaments and win them. Yep. So the bloke can offer that. He is at that level. So that's a 10 out of 10. So I'll average the 2 and say 5.
There we go. There we go. Well, listen, guys, I really appreciated your time today. Bit of a different show today. Next week, we will be back to Tottenham would have played. Yay! Tottenham would have played next week. We would have played West Ham. And then we will be a couple of days out from playing AZ Alkmaar and the return of Troy Parrott. Ben, thank you very much wherever you've gone. Thank you very much. Kuva, much love. Thank you very much for your time as always.
Pleasure as always, mate. And if we don't beat West Ham,
got to. Listen, absolutely. Kuva, feel free to join me Saturday morning. My show's starting at 10:30 a.m. All I'm going to say on West Ham is have to win this game. Have to now. Otherwise, we lose so much touch with the top 4. It's unreal. Got to win this game. They've won 1 of their last 5 in all competitions. We've got to beat West Ham. So that's all I'm going to say.
Belief's already being sapped. That will just empty the tank, I think.
I agree with you. But I do need to go and leave it there. Big up to Ben wherever he is. This feels like kind of how The Soprano... Oh, he's back. He's back. By the way, guys, girls, take care. Please like, please subscribe. Anyone watching this, join me live at 2:30 p.m. I'm doing a special show with... Flawless from Sarcasm City, which is all about YouTubers and their journey and why they wanted to do it. It's my turn on his channel today. I'll put the link in the chat, 2:30. Take care, everyone.
He's a good lad, is Flawless. Yeah.
Lovely guy.
Yeah.
Really good guy. Take care, everyone. And as always, come on, Amanda Stavely. That sounds really wrong. Come on, that sounded awful.
I told you had a thing for
that. Sounded awful. Oh, my God. As always, come on.
Up comes Savva's 12.5% again.
Oh, my God. Anyway, what a way to end the show. Take care. Goodbye.